We're only recording the portion of the meeting, though, that will feature Kendall sharing information for your benefit. We will not be recording the discussion portion so that you're free to speak candidly about the what you're facing in your own companies. So please be aware that we're being recorded now, but we will stop the recording when we get to the point where we're going to invite folks to talk. So welcome, I'm Christina Henderson, Executive Director of the Montana High Tech Business Alliance. Welcome to this discussion on growing fast and struggling to maintain culture as you scale with Kendall Clifton Short. This event is part of a monthly Lunch and Learn series on people and culture hosted by the Montana High Tech Business Alliance and Within People. You can find details of future sessions at mthightech.org/events. Our presenter today, Kendall Clifton Short, is a partner at the global firm Within People and is based in Bozeman. Today's discussion, again, with participants will not be recorded to allow you to talk freely, but this first portion where Kendall is presenting will be recorded and sent out to everyone who's registered after the meeting. So with that, I'd now like to turn the floor over to Kendall Clifton Short to get us started.
Thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone. It's great to have you here. I really appreciate that you would make time over your lunch break today to come and have this conversation. It's obvious for you to be here that you believe there's an important relationship between culture and growth, which is absolutely what we believe too. And I've also got Emily Shelton here, who's also a Within People person, who's keen to join and add value to this conversation too. So let's dive in. And like Christina said, bit different to some events, the idea, I guess, is that, yes, we have a topic and we have some sort of, I guess, theory or opinion around it, but then really we workshop the specific challenges that are in your businesses, obviously maintaining the privacy that you need in the context of your own business, so that we can start to really unpack how we solve this problem as opposed to just talking about it from a theoretical perspective. So if you've got questions or contributions, we'd love to hear it at any time. Emily and Christina and Martina will help me to keep an eye on the chat, or just feel free to put your hand up or just shout over me. All of them work. So here we are. So the conversation that we're really here to have today, as Christina mentioned, is how do we maintain culture as we scale fast? That's me on the left, and that's Emily on the right. And hopefully you'll hear from both of us today. I guess to start us off, let's just, I guess, get clear on why culture and growth are in the same sentence as being related to each other. So when we talk about growth, you know, there's this great quote from Tim Cook: companies get confused thinking that their goal is revenue or stock price, but really what we need to do is focus on the things that unlock those or lead to those. And so when we think about money, we have to think about how we make that money, right? So, but money is just the outcome. And we all know, if we're just paying attention as business owners to the outcome, then when we don't deliver on it, it's a bit late. So what drives it? And so for us at Within, the source of growth really sits in three areas: profit and impact and people. And we see culture as being essential fuel for all of these three areas for performance. So we see culture having a role in driving culture through, we see culture having a role to drive both profit and impact and growth and joy. And when we think about sort of joy, we're really thinking about people and growth and stuff. So if culture really is the fuel that drives growth, it becomes sort of imperative that we pay attention to our culture as we grow. And when we think about sort of what made us great as a startup and stuff, like how do we capture that magic and not let it get diluted or not lose it as we have more people come into the fold? So that's really the conversation that we want to have. I'm going to hand over to Emily, who's going to talk to like how we believe like we solve that problem, what the ingredients to that puzzle is, if you like, and then we'll unpack that in a little bit more detail.
Right. So it's one thing to ask the question, like, how can we maintain culture as we grow? But I think what we really need to do is kind of take it all the way back to the start, right? So we kind of are speaking to when you have founders of a company, they come together, they have a common goal, and they start to kind of vibe off of one another. And culture is kind of, it becomes innate. It just is unintentionally built in those moments. So then we kind of need to take a step back and say, how can we expect other people to step into this space? Have we clearly articulated what we want this process to look like? So far, it's kind of been unspoken, right? So starting there and then going into, once we have that clarity, how do we embed it into all of the different ways that we're working with one another? How do we put it into our operations process? So going back to our other slide, right, we can look at it in terms of profit, impact, and growth, and then kind of take a look at what mechanisms and processes we've put into place to help that be carried across at those levels. And then additionally, from there, how are we measuring that progress, right? So what procedures are in place to check in with our employees along the way? That could look very different. But additionally, have we created the safe spaces for people to step into and be transparent about how their experience has been within that culture?
Right. So there you have it. It's like, what do we even mean by culture? Then how are we starting to embed it into everything we do? And then how are we tracking our progress? So that sort of then raises the question of, okay, well, what is our like cultural architecture? When we talk about a business and we talk about culture, what are we even talking about, right? And in our world at Within, we're really talking about sort of, we call this the purpose framework. It's also like your cultural architecture or your cultural DNA, but really it's sort of getting clear on like why you even get out of bed in the morning and choose to go to work, which we call your purpose. Lots of other companies call your mission, right? So what is the North Star driving you? And where's it driving you towards? What's the picture of the world, the rich picture of the world that you are hoping to create in your work? And then values are really the behaviors that are going to drive you there. Emily was talking about those sort of like innate ways of working that you come together as founders. Like, what are you doing? How are you behaving that's unlocking your success as a startup? And how do we start to language and package them up into other behaviors that other people can then step into, and then we can sort of hold them to that and measure progress against it. So from a sort of cultural architecture perspective, this is really what we're talking about. And this is, once we have this clarity, and sometimes we know it, we just don't bother articulating it, or we've never had the need. Sometimes we don't know it, and it's just this haphazard mixture of things that we're doing, some of which are serving us and some of which aren't. And sometimes we have articulated it and we do have it very clearly stated, but it's a bit like that strategy that we pay lots of money for and then put in the drawer and never refer to again, because it's not actually being lived and we're not bringing it to life every day. And it's just sort of something that we thought was a good idea, but we forgot to actually action, I guess, or implement. So having said that, let's us stop talking and Christina can stop the video, which Zoom has